Hello fellow minis. One of the biggest hidden secrets that I feel like every single player playing Clash Mini should know is that you don't have to upgrade the minis in order. So if I'm facing the monk and I really don't want him to activate his ability, and I have the mini P.E.K.K.A, I don't have to get this ability first. I can specifically choose this ability instead. If you drag and drop a mini onto the board, the mini will automatically get its first ability, then its second, and then its third ability. But if you just tap on the mini instead, you can select whichever mini ability you would like to use. In this case, you would select Drain to try and counter the Monk Super. This opens up a ton of strategies and allows you to use your deck to adapt to whichever minis your opponent has. And it makes it that much more important to know which abilities you want to use, which is why in this video, I'm gonna go over the best upgrade order for every mini in the game. We're gonna start off with the 2 elixir minis, which are really cheap and easy to upgrade. And if you're gonna get a 3-star mini, they're probably gonna be the easiest ones. However, some upgrades are better than others. First up is the Knight, and my number 1 upgrade for the Knight is going to be light armor. And the reason why is he doesn't have a whole lot of HP. He does. He can get up his super, but requiring 1 less energy for him is going to allow him to get that super much more frequently. I honestly don't think that his first or his second upgrade are really that great, unless like you really need a good tank on your field. The one exception is if you're building an Archer Queen deck and you want a cheap tank, but even then, you're probably better off upgrading the Skeleton Guard. By the way, some of the gameplay you're seeing in this video is actually from a video where I showed every single star ability and how it works. If you missed it, you should definitely watch it after this video because it'll help you understand all of the minis much better. But this upgrade order is going to help you win a lot more matches. Up next is the Barbarian. Now, I know it is really tempting to go with his Endless Rage first. That's a good ability, but he's a frontline mini and he only has 6 HP. It's not going to activate that often, at least not until you upgrade him a couple times. I found that his critical ability is the better first upgrade for the Barbarian because it helps him deal more damage on average, and then you should go with Endless Rage, since by that time you'll have upgraded him twice and he'll have more HP, which will allow him to actually survive long enough to make this worth it. Now, his Pride ability is really good, but only if he already has Endless Rage and critical. He does have to stay alive and kill enemies for it to activate pretty frequently. So the only time I really try to upgrade my Barbarian that high is if he's facing against like the Countess or the Miner, because they're jumping around and the Barbarian's going to be relatively safe. Next is the Miner, who's arguably the best 2 elixir mini in the game right now. Whichever ability you get first is just going to depend on which enemy you're facing. If they have a lot of backline enemies, absolutely go with Big Shovel so the Miner can kill more than one at a time. If they have the Magic Mirror on their map and it's very far back, I highly recommend using Excitement because the Miner will be very likely to take out one of them pretty quickly because they'll start out at half health. In any other situation, I recommend using Surprise so that he gains Backstab at first, then using Excitement, and then ending with Big Shovel. And just to clarify, the Miner is an amazing mini to get all the way to 3 stars and upgrade him 3 times. So you really can't go wrong with his abilities. Next is the Archer. Now, if you're facing the Shield Maiden, do not get Archery because there's a really good chance it's just going to end up killing the Archer. And against any other hero though, I think that her best ability is just Archery. It straight up doubles her DPS, which is insane, especially if the enemy team has more than 1 ranged mini. And next, I recommend Rush for that initial speed boost. And if you've already invested in the Archer, I think that her Pride is actually a great option for 2 elixir since it works so well with her other abilities. Next is the Spear Goblin. Now, his strong arm ability is like crazy strong, but only if you spend 4 elixir right off the start so the enemy does not know that you have the Spear Goblin, because as soon as they know that, they're going to be putting all of their precious support brawlers, or sorry, minis, behind some sort of a tank at the front. This isn't Brawl Stars, Kairos, it's Clash Mini. So most of the time, I actually recommend going with Stun Shot because it adds a stun to the enemy that gets hit by it for 3 seconds. Now, because you have to get pretty lucky to effectively use the Spear Goblin, I don't typically get his 2 other upgrades unless you're playing him on a Magic Mirror. And in that case, I would go with Strong Arm and then Pride. I personally prefer the Bowler or the Giant Skeleton on the Magic Mirror though, so keep that in mind. Next, we have the Wizard. Now, unless I'm playing the Wizard after the enemy has their full deck of troops on the field, I don't start with Expand. If they do, then that's great. But otherwise, I start with Ignite because that extra damage over those 4 seconds, even if it's stretched out, that effectively triples the Wizard's damage against all targets that he hits, which is a lot of value. Now, by the 3rd round, I like to have his Expand ability because that's usually when the enemy team will have all of their troops on the ground. And using Spicy just honestly depends on which minis the enemy has. If they have the Healing Ranger or the Battle Healer, then you'll want to get this upgrade. And you'll also want to use it when you're facing against the Countess because it prevents her from healing herself even after she uses her super. But if the enemy doesn't have any healing abilities, there's no reason for you to get this, unless like for some reason you want to buff the wizard's HP, which by the way, every time you upgrade a mini, they get a special ability, but they all get a small HP buff as well. Next, we have the ice wizard. Now, if the enemy is using the miner or the countess that are gonna like jump to your back line and take out the ice wizard, the first upgrade should be the ice bomb. It's great. It freezes them in place. It's really solid, but not as solid as they'll be when they're a block of ice. If they don't have the miner or the countess though, I really wouldn't bother getting this upgrade. Instead, I would go with blizzard for a chance to slow multiple enemies, and then I would go with chill to slow them even more. I think you get more value for blizzard if the enemy has more minis on the front line, which is why I suggest it first. Plus, slowing multiple minis I think is better than slowing the same mini a little bit more. And our final 2 elixir mini is the skeleton guard. Now, the best ability by far that you should always start off with is quick action, so that he casts that shield right off the start. It's an insane HP buff for him. You put him right on the front lines. It's great. After that is growth, so that his attack speeds up whenever his shield is up. And if you use quick action, it will be up at the very start, which is really awesome. And then you want to go with iron shield to further increase his shield amount. That's pretty much the best order for the skeleton guard every single time. And a max skeleton guard actually provides a lot of value and is worth getting, in my opinion. Now let's talk about the 3 elixir minis. Now, typically for any of these, the highest you're ever going to want to upgrade them, you're just 2 stars. Although there are a couple that might actually be worth upgrading all the way. First up is the giant skeleton, and my favorite ability to start off with is flashbang. It stuns enemies for 2 seconds. Oh my gosh, that's such a great ability. I'm telling you guys right now, stuns are some of the best abilities in the game because they counter so many brawlers. Minis. I can't tell you how many times a stun has reset the animation for another mini when they're trying to use their super or something like that. Like, it's so good. You want to stun as many minis as possible, which is why blast radius is the second upgrade that I want to go with. I do like bigger for the additional damage, but they're honestly, I think, are better 3 elixir upgrades, so I don't usually get this one. These 2 are just the solid ones. Up next is the lumberjack, and I'm going to tell you right now, guys, quick sip is the first ability that I pick for him because you can position him so that he throws it onto the mini next to him, and he rages himself, that mini, and a mini in front, behind, and to the other side of that, and all 4 of those, wait, that's 5 minis, all get raged right at the start. That's insane. I can count, I swear. I don't typically upgrade the lumberjack more than once, but if he is my best option, I'll go with potent before I go with splash. Splash is good, but I'd rather have the rage last longer than only have a chance to reach more minis, which, I mean, it's a good chance, but you get the idea. Now we have the mini P.E.K.K.A, who is one of my favorite minis to counter literally every hero in the game. And that is all thanks to his drain ability, which gains 2 dissipate for each attack that removes energy from heroes' supers or mini supers so that they're not going to be able to activate it. This is especially useful against the monk because the monk's super is devastating, and this will prevent him from getting it because the monk attacks so slowly. Now, if the opponent has really tanky minis like the Shield Maiden or the P.E.K.K.A or Mega Knight, then I'll get Hack for the additional damage, but that's usually as far as I will upgrade the mini P.E.K.K.A. Pride is good, but it's not as good as other 3 elixir mini upgrades would be, or even just spending that elixir towards some 2 minis. Next is the Dark Goblin, and the Dark Goblin's first upgrade is going to depend on the minis that you're facing. If your opponent has the Miner, the Archer Queen, Countess, or any other mini that will easily kill the Dark Goblin, then the best first upgrade for you is Stun Shot, because there's a good chance that the Dark Goblin will die before Rhythm is actually ever useful. Also, Stun Shot is a great ability because it's actually pretty good at countering any enemy minis that have a really good super. Now, if your opponent doesn't have a way to counter the Dark Goblin, then Rhythm, guys, it's insanely strong. It is so good and should be your first upgrade. And then if you have a 2-star Dark Goblin, then I would absolutely go with Stun Shot, if it's not able to be countered. And then Pride is also, I mean, it's insane. If you have these 3 and they can't counter your Dark Goblin, they will lose the match. Like, unless they have the Shield Main or something. I'm telling you guys, Dark Goblin is low-key OP if they can't counter him, which is why the Miner is so good right now. Next is the Bowler, and my first upgrade every single time is Crushing. Additional stun. Are you kidding me? It's so good. Now, because the Bowler is a ranged unit, I also like to get on a roll for him so that he's able to activate that strike multiple times a match, which is because of the stun, the long stun. I want that stun. And then I don't recommend using his damage ability unless you're playing him on the magic mirror. And in that case, if he's your best option, then it's a pretty good option. But most of the time, damage is not going to be worth the additional 3 elixir. Next, we have the Healing Ranger, who I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've tried making her work. Maybe I just don't know how to to use her. So you should probably take my advice with her with a grain of salt. If you have the Healing Ranger and you want to upgrade her, then I'd go with her Inspire ability because it increases damage, and I love increasing damage. And, you know, it's going to increase the damage for her allies as well. Next, I would go with Extra Dose so that more of your minis get buffed by Inspire. And if you really want to max her out for some reason, you can go with her Strong Dose, but I don't really recommend it. And by the way, there's been some confusion about the Healing Ranger. The Healing Ranger always tries to heal the furthest friendly mini from her, which makes her a good option when playing with the minor Countess because she also heals every mini along the way as well. And the last 3 elixir mini is the Valkyrie, and by far my favorite ability to start off is with Rush every single time. A huge speed increase for a short time at the very start of the match. I'm sold. Clash abilities are great. On top of that, I think that it is definitely worth it for you to upgrade her Frenzy ability so that she can actually hit enemies from the rush at the very start. She's going to get really fast, and then this is going to keep her fast. Now, I do like Humble for the Valkyrie, but it's a lot of elixir, and I don't think it's really worth upgrading her 3 times for. And now it's time for the 4 elixir minis, okay? Upgrading these costs a lot, so really, you're probably only ever going to want to upgrade them once. Let's start with the P.E.K.K.A. Now, your first upgrade for the P.E.K.K.A. depends on why you added her to your deck in the first place. If you need a tank, armor is the way to go. So like if you're playing her with the Archer Queen. But if you're facing off against a tank like the Shield Maiden or another P.E.K.K.A., then her first ability is really great. If you need both, you could go with both of these, but I don't think you should for most of the matches. Now the P.E.K.K.A.'s third ability is good if you already have her first ability, but I think there are just better ways to spend your elixir than this. Up next is the Magic Archer. Now, if you're facing a mini with a really strong super, then I think that Drain is a really great option. So like if you're facing against the Shield Maiden or the Monk, like those are game-changing supers, so go with this one first. But it is honestly a close tie for me with Steel Tips because 1 additional damage against every mini that the Magic Archer hits is really good. Either way, I actually don't recommend ever getting his Shatter ability. Based on my testing, it only works against the Skeleton Guard and not against minis with Block. Block is not the same as Shield, so it's really not ever worth it to use this one. And by the way, I don't think that either of these are so great that you should get both of them, but having one of them is worth it sometimes. Next, we have the Battle Healer, and my first upgrade for her is Triage. That 4 additional health is enough to allow her or whoever else she's healing to stay alive always against pretty much any mini in a 1v1 interaction. And that's probably actually the only upgrade that I would get for the Battle Healer, okay? Aura is good, but not worth 4 elixir in my opinion. And Cheer is only good if you have a lot of minis with supers, and even then it might not be that great. Next is the Mega Knight, and my first upgrade for the Mega Knight, you guys probably guessed it, it's Slam. That's stun duration. Stun is so good. If you guys disagree with me on stuns, let me know, but in my opinion, they're some of the strongest abilities in the game. Now, I also like Earthquake a lot, but only if it comes to the final round, since that's a really expensive upgrade. I don't actually like Shockwave, but I honestly haven't tested it out that much in an actual match, so there's a chance that it might be very strong. In fact, it might be the best one. So try out the Mega Knight. I haven't found that he's very good, so I haven't used him very much. So maybe I'm just completely wrong about him. And finally, guys, we have the Electro Wizard. Oh, and until he gets nerfed, his fork ability, it's insane. It should not strike up to 4 enemies. It should only strike up to 3, okay? It's insane. And if that nerf happens, it still might be too strong. Now, the second upgrade to choose for him is actually kind of tough, but not because neither of them are good. It's because they're both so good, okay? On one hand, we got 2-second stun duration added. I love stun. And then we have 4 Dissipate, removes 4 energy from anybody that gets hit by his super. That is just crazy good. The Electro Wizard might be the only 4-star mini that I would recommend getting all the way up to 3 stars. Keep in mind though that getting him on the field and upgrading him 3 times is gonna cost 16 elixir. The longest a match will ever go is 30 elixir. That's half of your elixir on 1 mini, okay? It's an expensive upgrade, and it might not be worth it. Personally, I think it's just a matter of time before the Elixir Wizard gets nerfed, so maybe my opinions of him will change later. And there you have it, every mini's preferred upgrade order. Now, if you'd like to see all these abilities in actions with some good, clear explanations of how they work, then you guys can check this video out right here. And also, here is another Clash Mini video that you guys can watch. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel for more Clash Mini content, and if you like Brawl Stars, then you should consider subscribing to my main channel as well. For now, this is KairosTime ticking by, and we will see you in Clash Mini, my friends.